In that case, it looks like the education system and the way that we value certain kinds of education is going to need to change. And I've heard you speak passionately in the past about an issue that we damp down kids' curiosity in the traditional education systems and say, no, stop looking at that, stop playing with that. You need to go and learn these specific exercises. So
Yeah.
I wonder how you think we can reawaken that kind of curiosity without fear. And when I say fear, I mean the fear of parents or older generations, because they might want to nurture it in their kids. They understand the necessity for it. But if they don't have any answers themselves, because the parents have only got this old-fashioned education, how can we overcome this divide and find a way to nurture it in children?
Yeah, the thing that we call modern Western education is not the only system of education that has ever been explored, and I don't think it's very hard to have the educational philosophy argument that it is just not even a very good one for many definitions of what is a meaningful way to educate a human being. But when you look at kind of the history of how it came about and things like we need, the movement into an industrial revolution where we needed a lot of people to get trained to fulfill roles within the industrial revolution that were pretty fungible, right? Factory line workers were pretty fun, like any of them could do basically what any of the other ones could do. And MBAs are supposed to be able to do pretty much what the other ones can do, and doctors. And so society needs people to fulfill these roles. So how do we create both an extrinsic incentive economics to get them to do it, and how do we create an education system to train them up into these roles where then we identify them with this role, and this role is really fungible with anyone else who had that training, give or take a little bit. There's going to be profound meaninglessness in that because the uniqueness of self is gone. Their own kind of self-directed process is gone, right? And again, especially in the place of robotic automation, where those jobs are going to be getting automated, and not just physical robotic automation, but even the deep learning through a lot of the things that we think of as thinking things, but things that are proceduralizable. I think that actually makes possible and necessitates a foundational rethinking of what education should be for, and really like what civilization should be for. And it is rather, if we can decouple to where the jobs don't need the people to do them, we can also decouple it to where the people don't need the jobs, meaning start to actually change the economic structure because we don't need it to be a source of extrinsic incentive. Then we get to say, okay, now we can actually have a system of where intrinsic incentive is deeper to both the economics and the education. So what is an education system where the focus is facilitating each child's unique expression, their unique passion, interest, curiosities, capacities, and following it, right? Now you say, how can teachers participate with that if they weren't facilitated that way, and they don't necessarily know the answer, and the kid's going to ask them questions they don't know answers to.
Yeah.
If the parent's earnest, if they really are earnest about this, they can go on a process of co-discovery with their kid. And when the kid says, so why is the sky blue? And the parent realizes that they don't actually know. They remember something about diffraction, but maybe it is reflecting the ocean. They don't really fucking know, right? Then they can be like, well, let's explore it together. Yeah. And then rather than push for that exploration to go in the way that they're interested in, pay attention to the kid's interest and ask them, like, find out why they're interested in it and what their intuition about it is, what their thought is, and help go through the process of helping them learn how to learn and facilitating their interest in life and letting their interest in life and their learning reignite the adults also.
I think that's a key ingredient there that you mentioned I hadn't thought of, which is not only to go and find the answer for the kid, but say, first of all, what do you think and why do you wonder that? And try and tune into the nature of that curiosity. it's the dynamic that I often see, and I even feel it myself, is a sort of sense, a little bit of shame and fear if someone asks me a question I feel I ought to know the answer to. And so it's a kind of a conversation too about putting aside our own ego and need to appear a certain way in front of others.
Well, there's a few fun things here. So let's first address the part about asking the kid why they're interested. So the kid asked why the sky is blue. Maybe that was the question they asked in the moment, but they're just really curious about why any color has color. And they could just as easily ask, why is the leaf green? And they really just want to know what color is, right? Or they're really asking kind of a question about God and existential things, about like, why did the creator make it that way? Because that's the way they're thinking about it. And so they're thinking about things like, why is anything the way that it is? Or they're asking a question about, why is it that we subjectively experience it as blue, and does that relate to what is objectively true, and do we all experience it the same way? If you don't know, you're going to go into answering it the way you think they're asking it. And then you're going to find them get bored pretty quickly, and then you're going to get frustrated and try and get them to pay attention. And so it's pretty important to actually pay attention to what is the real inquiry. And then not you go find the answer as if the answer already fucking exists. They might be asking questions the answers don't fully exist to, and you get to like be in that process of discovery together where the answer matters less than the investigation, the inquiry, the thinking about it. And some of the best questions are when they get to things where we don't know the answers, and their intuition about it might be as good as anybody's.
Yeah, that's the whole, I guess the stereotype, the picture of the from the mouths of babes thing, where you start seeing the world from a new angle just because somebody is asking a question which is unencumbered by years of cultural conditioning.
Yeah, and if we're asking about, so what's fundamentally real? Is consciousness real? And this is all arising in my consciousness. Is matter fundamentally real, and my consciousness is an epiphenomenon of neural networks? If we ask a question where the real answer right now is we don't fucking know, those are the best thinkers in the world, vehemently disagree on this, then it's a place where you get to actually have a dialogue with them really on equal footing, because you actually can't, even though you can tell a whole history of Western philosophy and Eastern philosophy on it, that still just brings you to, I just told you a whole lot of things about why I don't know. And so if you can come back to the like fascination and the interest, you're in the same place as them, and they are touching it for the first time in different ways.